Welcome to the Screw the System channel. I'm Joe Barnes and I'm here with part 2 of my Sigma male life story. Now, before I start the story, I guess the question is, what is a Sigma male? Now, a Sigma male, as opposed to an alpha male or a beta male, which are the more popular terms, is someone who wants to go their own way. They don't want to follow society's path. They are ambitious, yet at the same time slightly introverted. They don't follow the rules and they make their own rules and their own path in life. So I came across this term probably about 6 months or so ago and thought it perfectly encapsulated my approach to life. So I thought I'd give you guys a quick sort of run through of different stages of my life. If any of you watched the first video, part 1, it covered the years 2000 to 2004. Today we're doing 2005 to the end of 2009. And the reason I'm telling my story is that I want to give you an insight in some of the challenges I faced, some of the mistakes I made, so hopefully you won't have to repeat them, and some of the things that you might expect as well as a Sigma male, or maybe not even a male, maybe a female who has a strong sense of their own identity and wants to follow their own path. So by sharing my story, I'm hoping that you can learn and not make some of the mistakes I've made and get to your destination faster than I have. So we will begin now where we left with the last installment of this series and cover 2005. Actually, before I start with 2005, you may be wondering, where the hell am I with the sea behind me? I'm actually in Greece. And if you watch the first series, the first section of this video, 2000 to 2004, you'd have seen me in the woods behind my home. Now you see me in Greece, just enjoying a late summer holiday. It's a place called Sani Resort, which is near Thessaloniki, if any of you know Greece. That's where I am, so join me as I take you on a little walk and discuss 2005. So picking up from where we left off from the last series, I had mentioned before that by 2005 I qualified as a tennis coach and as a hypnotherapist, and I was working on both of those things. Well, 2005 was actually sort of my breakthrough year as a hypnotherapist. I found myself a clinic to work from when I started seeing clients, and this was very terrifying for me at first. I didn't have the confidence. I did 10 months of training. It didn't prepare me in a practical sense to see clients. I very much thought of quitting many times over. When you're following your own path, you have to there is no guidebook or playbook to follow. You have to, in a sense, find out what works, and a lot of it is trial and error. And for that reason, when you start something new, like hypnotherapy for me, well, the confidence wasn't really there. And although I started to see a couple of clients a week, 2 or 3 sessions a week, I wasn't feeling like I was delivering great sessions and constantly treading water. I think that's the word, the phrase I'd use to describe it. I felt like I was drowning in some sense, and I was just trying to keep my head above the water, learn as much as I possibly could, and try to progress and get better as a hypnotherapist. So as 2006 rolled around, I was doing pretty much the same as I just explained then. And if you listen to the first series and listening to this one now, you may also be wondering about the other aspect of my life, not just work or not just following my dreams. What about personal life? What about romantic life? Well, there wasn't a lot to talk about, especially in the first 5 years. I was very much a lonely Joe. Only 1 or 2 friends, no girlfriends. I barely think I went on a date for 5 years, which is, looking back now, is crazy and insane to think of, but that was the case. However, when I got to 2006, I had my first sort of real romantic interest for a long period of time, and I met this person she was a coaching client of mine, ended up having a very brief relationship, and it sort of put me in a complete spin. It turned my world on its head, because I've been so long without love or any kind of female contact, that to get it and suddenly think that this could be leading somewhere, or feel the excitement of what it was like to be dating again and being physical again and being what seemed like was to be in a relationship, but it didn't work out. And it absolutely turned my world on its head, because I'd had this taste of how life could be. You know, before that was very much a struggle, you know, trying to find my way in the world as individual who found a lot of what he saw in the world as alien and unfriendly and unwelcoming and not something I wanted to be a part of. So I'd had this serious, what was going to be a serious romantic relationship taken away from me, and I felt that I was in a spiral. And my only way of trying to make sense of it was to dig deeper into this idea of following my dreams. Prior to that, as I mentioned, I've been working as a tennis coach and a hypnotherapist, and as much as I like doing those things, I wouldn't exactly call them my inspirations, my dreams. So after that big shock of a failed relationship, I decided that I had to go full force into writing my first book. So by 2007, I was writing about 1 hour every day. That was my schedule, or 1 hour and a half if my other work permitted it. And I made some reasonable progress, and by August of 2007, I felt confident enough to let somebody else look at my work, and that somebody else was what turned out to be my writing mentor, Tom Butler-Bowden. Now, Tom has written a whole series of great books called the 50 Classics. You'll hear me talk about him all the time, but back then I didn't know him. Emailed him, asked him to take a look at my manuscript. He agreed, so I drove over to Oxford to have a meeting with him, see him to see really if there was any potential in what I'd written, because up until that point you really don't know, as somebody who is trying to forge their own path, who is trying to make their own way in the world. The thought often enters your mind, am I crazy, am I nuts, because everyone around me seems to be doing something else, something different, so how am I right in doing what I'm doing? So I needed to get some feedback from another person, and fortunately when I drove up to Oxford to meet with Tom, he really saw the potential in the manuscript. At the time the book was called How to Live Your Dreams. He advised I changed it to something a bit more, something that stood out a bit more, something a bit less generic. So I went away and came up with the idea of Screw the System. And after that meeting with him, it was a tremendous boost for my self-belief. I really started to think that I could actually become a credible best-selling author. So once I'd had that meeting with him, the rest of the year I was writing with a renewed, an increased sense of belief. As I moved into 2008, I was pretty fixed in my writing routine. I did have a trip to, the Inca Trail. I walked the Inca Trail in Peru, end of 2007, start of 2008. And then into 2008, I was pretty much doing the same thing. That's writing, hypnotherapy, tennis coaching, playing a little bit of tennis on the side, and enjoying myself, or at least feeling that my life had a meaning and my life had a direction, that it was actually moving forwards. I think that's the key, and I think that's the key for anybody who walks a similar path. That feeling that you're making progress is something you have to have to make the journey worthwhile, to make it continue. You have to feel, you have to know in some way how you're making progress and be able to measure it. Every single day I would score my days out of 10. At that time I think I was scoring 8 or 9 out of 10 days, or maybe 1 or 2 7 out of 10s, but that was a way of me keeping track, to feel that I was making progress when I was working on such a big project like writing a book, which you have no idea whether it's going to be successful. You may feel good about it, but ultimately you don't really know what the outcome is going to be. So you need something to keep you motivated and keep you going. But for 2008 was, as I said, characterized by those 3 things. I'd also drive up every 2 or 3 months or so to see Tom, to give him my latest chapter, to get his feedback, his very valuable feedback, which helped me improve as a writer. So as I moved into 2009, things started to change for me, and things started to change for me because I started to get a lot better with the girls, with the ladies. I was no longer awkward Joe, not knowing what to say and finding it difficult to make conversation or get a date and form a relationship. My game started to improve. I read a couple of books which helped. Neil Strauss's books, excellent, The Game. That's a really good book I can recommend. Anyway, I wasn't out to try and be a player at all, and I wasn't in any sense of the word, but I was starting to get a couple of different girlfriends, not at the same time, one after the other. But that kind of was a distraction, but a good distraction, because it's a side of your life that you can't ignore it. You can chase a dream, but your life will be empty somewhat if there's no human and personal connection. So I was kind of taking a little time out to explore that side of my life while still doing the other things. Writing my book, doing my hypnotherapy, doing my tennis coaching. So we're talking a good 2 years into writing now, and that's partly why my book took so long, partly because it was part-time work, I was working on other things as well, and partly because I valued other areas of my life and felt that they needed developing and exploring. So 2009 was a year of, yes, continued work, but also to kind of fill the hole of my personal life, which had been a huge gaping hole for most of my 20s. So it was important that I explored that side of my life. So that pretty much brings an end to the 2005 to 2009. I don't want to make these videos super long. Of course, this is just a quick glimpse into my life and what I'm doing, but I hope you guys can take something from the stories and the insights that I'm sharing. I will do 2010 to 2014 to let you know how the story develops. I don't know when, it's been about 9 months since I made the first series, and I like this theme of making these videos with some nice natural location, so may need for me to go on holiday again to make another one of these videos. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. Do stay tuned for the next video. Subscribe if you want to be getting notifications on when that is out. Check out my previous content. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.